I wanted to ask Lujan. 3 years have passed since my last relationship ended. Should I start a new one? Should I consider me? Lujan's phone rang at the most inopportune moment, and a woman's voice came through the receiver. That was when I knew I wouldn't get an answer. This year's birthday, as always, was spent with Lujan. An outdoor couples restaurant, a specially reserved couples set meal, the night sky blurred, and Lujan's face, lit gently by the lights, exuded warmth. Lujan could easily see through my little thoughts, but he indulged me, perhaps out of silent consent. The waiter brought out the last course, a heart-shaped dessert, and Lujan handed me a beautifully wrapped gift box. Inside was a card camera I had long been wanting. I had been waiting for it for months since the pre-sale, but it hadn't arrived yet. I had no idea how Lujan managed to get me a brand new one. The sleek, all-black metallic body gleamed softly in the warm, dim light. I couldn't resist pressing the power button. In the viewfinder appeared the contour of Lujan's face, three-dimensional and clear. He faced the camera, with the lights behind him blurred into a starry background. His eyes seemed to hold starlight. By some strange impulse, I pressed the shutter and froze the moment. The curve of his lips as they gradually rose couldn't be hidden. The atmosphere was just right. Everything fell into place naturally. I wanted to ask Lujan. 3 years have passed since my last relationship ended. Should I start a new one? Should I consider me? But then, Lujan's phone rang at the most inopportune moment, and I didn't get an answer. A woman's voice came faintly through the receiver. Lujan seemed to glance at me instinctively before standing up to step toward the balcony to take the call. Holding the phone in one hand, he instinctively swept his hair back with the other, a movement he made when he was anxious. A moment later, Lujan returned, casually picking up his coat from the back of the chair. Shu-yi, there's an urgent matter. I have to go to the hospital right away. Lujan was a cardiologist, and hospitals often had emergencies. I didn't think too much about it. Go ahead, I'll head home on my own, I said. I was about to stand up, but a sudden sharp pain in my abdomen stopped me in my tracks. You take care, and be careful on your way home. Lujan didn't notice anything unusual as he hurriedly left. I thought it was just something I ate, but as the night went on, the pain grew worse, accompanied by a fever and nausea. That's when I realized something was seriously wrong. I immediately tried to call Lujan. Perhaps he was still busy, but his phone went unanswered. I gritted my teeth, bent over to clutch my stomach, and staggered to the gate of the community, barely managing to catch a taxi. At the emergency room, I tried calling Lujan again, but this time the phone was turned off. Lujan's phone was always on, 24/7, and never like this. It made me uneasy. The physical pain and mental tension drained my energy. I leaned against the wall, slowly sliding down. Are you all right? A concerned voice rang out beside me, and a pair of strong hands reached out to support me. I looked up, seeing a stranger's face, wearing a mask, but I could make out his bright eyes under the golden-framed glasses. Song Young later shared his first encounter with me. He had just finished an emergency surgery and was slightly relaxed. As he walked back to his office, he was shocked to find me, pale and drenched in cold sweat. After learning that I was alone, Song Young showed his humanitarian spirit. He borrowed a wheelchair and pushed me to get checked. The final diagnosis was acute appendicitis, requiring immediate surgery. Worse than being alone at the hospital is being alone for surgery. I trembled as I signed the consent form. Really, no one's with you? Song Young furrowed his thick brows and asked again, confirming. My parents were in another city, and I had no friends to disturb in the middle of the night. I bit my lip, hesitated, and finally dialed the number. Still off. A sense of unease crept into my heart. Had something happened to Lujan? But right now, I couldn't focus on that. As they pushed me toward the operating room, I subconsciously grabbed the hem of Song Young's shirt. The feeling of not being in control of my own body made me anxious. This young doctor, though a stranger, radiated a kindness that felt like water to a traveler lost in the desert. Song Yuyang glanced at my hand, which had turned pale from gripping so tightly, and paused for a moment. He was usually all business, his expression tense and focused, never smiling. Just when I felt guilty for my unintentional behavior and wanted to retract my hand, Song Yuyang gently patted it. "Don't worry, I'm here." His voice, though young and not deep, had a magnetic quality that was enough to soothe my nerves. "Don't worry, I'm here." As I lay on the operating table, just before falling into unconsciousness, Song Yuyang said the same words again. Behind the surgical lights, his figure suddenly seemed much taller. When the anesthesia wore off, I vaguely sensed several people standing in the room, and I could faintly hear their conversation. Could have been a rupture, if we were any later. This is careless. Yuyang, thanks to you.
You've really helped me out.
Old Lu, don't mention it.
It's part of the job.
Besides, I didn't even know she was your friend. Old Lu? Lu Zhan. I jolted awake, my eyes flying open. It was already the next morning. The harsh light made me squint immediately. The first to notice I was awake was Xia Su. Wait, hadn't she gone abroad 3 years ago? Why was she here? Sorry, Shu Yi, I'm only seeing you now. I had a fever last night. It wasn't serious, just needed in 4, but when Lu Zhan found out, he insisted on staying with me. Xia Su said as she covered her mouth to cough lightly, glancing at Lu Zhan with a slightly playful look. Lu Zhan cleared his throat awkwardly and explained. At first, I didn't pay much attention. Then my phone died and turned off. The dark circles under his eyes were obvious. He must have stayed up all night, accompanying Xia Su. Lu Zhan moved closer, bending slightly in front of my bed, his tone softening. Are you feeling better now? What was going on here? Was this just concern from a friend? But the way he looked at me made it hard not to misunderstand. I almost wanted to remind him that Xia Su was standing right there. She was behind him, looking a little pale, but still radiating her usual beauty, giving off a somewhat fragile and delicate air. When people are weak, they can't hide their emotions properly. I turned my face away and stared out the window, my hand under the covers clutching the bedsheet, as if even the slightest blink would unleash the flood of tears threatening to spill over. I wasn't sure when Xia Su had returned. While I had been uneasy about whether something had happened to Lu Zhan, he had been with Xia Su the whole night. No wonder he had looked so anxious when he answered that call. I should have understood that only Xia Su could make him this worried. So, were they planning to get back together? But what right did I have to question that? I was relieved that I hadn't asked that question last night. If I had, it would have been too embarrassing. I heard your phone ring this morning, and I saw the call was from old Lu, so I thought you two knew each other and notified him. The silence was awkward, but Song Yuyang stepped in at the right moment to break the tension. Only then did I notice him standing by, having removed his mask. His features were sharp and youthful, even younger than I had imagined. Thank you, I said to him, sincerely. Lu Zhan opened his mouth to say something but was gently pushed out of the room by Song Yuyang. The patient needs rest right now. You guys should go. Lu Zhan had no choice but to give up. Before leaving, he patted Song Yuyang's shoulder with a friendly gesture. Yuyang, please take care of Shu Yi for me during this time. Of course, Song Yuyang eagerly responded, already ushering Lu Zhan out of the room. He glanced back at me, sighed, shook his head, and closed the door behind him. I should thank him for his sense of boundaries, leaving me alone so I could have some private space and not expose my fragile side in front of others. Lu Zhan introduced me as his friend. Perhaps there were no better words to describe the relationship between us. But I was the one unwilling to accept this. The first time I met Lu Zhan was when I was 13. After my mom and dad divorced, she brought me back to Yucheng. She took me to meet her best friend and told me to call her Aunt Zhou. Aunt Zhou and my mom chatted while I curled up in a corner, reading a storybook. The cicadas chirped outside the window, and the fan's blades rhythmically went click-clack, blending into a lullaby. I leaned back in my chair and fell into a deep sleep. In my drowsy state, I seemed to sense someone walking by, the breeze brushing past me. Where did this kid come from? It was a rough, youthful voice. My book slipped from my hands, and I jumped up, startled. Standing in front of me was a tall, lean boy. He seemed to have just finished playing basketball, wearing a jersey, and sweat trickled down his cheeks, some of it falling onto the wooden floor. "Oops, did I wake you up?" The boy held out a popsicle to me. "Want one?" The changes in my family and the unfamiliar surroundings made me feel withdrawn, and I had just seen him about to put the popsicle in his own mouth. I hesitated, looking at him nervously, and shook my head. "Hey, it's one you've never tried. Don't worry," he said, offering the popsicle again. I didn't want to seem like I was rejecting him, so I stretched out my hand and cautiously accepted it. The boy smiled at me. His skin was tanned, and his teeth were especially white, his smile bright like a gentle breeze in the morning. The taste of the popsicle has faded over the years, but I will always remember the refreshing sensation it brought, cooling me down from the summer heat. Later, I learned that the boy who was 3 years older than me was named Lu Zhan. Aunt Jo specifically asked him, "Shu, you will be at your school from now on. Treat her like your little sister and take care of her." Lu Zhan slapped his chest and promised, and he really did keep that promise. When I first transferred to the school, I couldn't adjust to the new environment and was isolated and teased.
It was Lu Zhan who stood up for me.
When I sprained my ankle during PE, it was Lu Zhan who carried me home. On rainy days, it was Lu Zhan who waited at the classroom door, offering me an umbrella. Over the years, I had grown accustomed to Lu Zhan's presence and naively thought that things would always stay this way. Until the summer of his second year in college, when he said he was going to take me to meet someone. At the bustling train station, I met Xia Su for the first time. She waved at us through the crowd, tall and slender, her smile radiant. Lu Zhan introduced Xia Su as a college friend who had come to visit him, but anyone with eyes could see that their relationship was not that simple. The three of us ate together and watched a movie together. Under the table, he and Xia Su held each other's hands tightly, and in the dark cinema, they kissed passionately. Lu Zhan introduced me as his neighbor's little sister to Xia Su, but I would have preferred he simply forgot about me and went on his own. In that trio, I clearly was the extra one. I felt like a third wheel, awkward and out of place, chewing on popcorn and staring at the big screen. The movie was about a girl's naive, unrequited crush during puberty, which never turned out well, and I was the only one who watched it seriously. I didn't dare make a sound, afraid of disturbing the other two, and also afraid that, in a moment of carelessness, I would reveal the turmoil in my heart. Xia Su was Lu Zhan's first love. It turns out that when you first fall in love, you can become a little foolish. He would laugh suddenly while explaining a problem to me, and during meals, he would leave the table to take an hour-long phone call on the balcony, completely ignoring the adults around. The summer dragged on, and Lu Zhan could no longer resist the longing. He went to the city where Xia Su was, but of course, this time he didn't take me with him. I imagined them dating in another city, holding hands, standing under the shade of summer trees, unwilling to part with each other. Then I finally realized that Lu Zhan belonged to Xia Su, and they belonged to each other. One day, Lu Zhan and I would grow apart, and we could never be like we were when we were younger. I still played the role of the neighbor's little sister in Lu Zhan's life, but there was no longer any reason to disturb him. I only occasionally checked in, meeting at family dinners during the holidays. Occasionally, I would see Xia Su at these dinners. Lu Zhan would introduce her with pride as his girlfriend. Their relationship was stable, and unless something unexpected happened, they would continue on, get married, and have children. But 3 years ago, something changed. Xia Su decided to go abroad, and Lu Zhan insisted on staying in his hometown. Neither of them was willing to compromise, and they broke up. Lu Zhan went through a period of soul-searching. I felt sorry for him, but didn't feel regretful. Their breakup just showed they weren't suited for each other in the end. And Lu Zhan, of course, would find someone more suitable for him. With a space now open beside him, I bravely took a step forward. I had been by his side all these years. We never crossed the line, but we were the closest to each other. Lu Zhan never had a new girlfriend, and now I finally understood. He simply hadn't let go of Xia Su. During my hospitalization, Lu Zhan came to visit me every day, sometimes alone, sometimes with Xia Su. Xia Su was still receiving N4 drip, and without a doubt, Lu Zhan stayed with her every day. Song Yang was indeed very considerate toward me. To help with my recovery on nice days, he would assist me in walking to the small garden for a stroll. He said that Lu Zhan was his college classmate and roommate, and since I was Lu Zhan's friend, there was no need for formalities between us. His gaze wasn't deep. In the sunlight, it looked almost light brown, as if it could embrace everything. Even though we weren't exactly close, it was hard to feel any distance from him. I even found myself willing to share my troubles with him. Emotional experiences are hard to put into words, but they sometimes slip out in conversation. Song Yang didn't comment, but I could tell he was genuinely listening. I worked at a psychiatric hospital, and after being discharged, I quickly returned to work. Xia Su was the first to come to see me. She made an appointment for a psychological consultation under her patient status, which surprised me. Though she had just recovered from her illness, she still looked a bit pale and fatigued. Skipping the usual pleasantries between familiar people, she got straight to the point, telling me that the years she spent abroad had not been easy. Even now, I still suffer from insomnia and need medication to sleep. Mental health issues are common among modern people, so I assumed she was genuinely seeking psychological counseling. Xia Su seemed to be recalling something difficult. At that time, I didn't have anyone to rely on. I kept thinking, if only Lu Zhan had come with me, or if I had just stayed with him. I regretted it every day. As soon as Lu Zhan was mentioned, I found myself unable to remain professional in analyzing her situation. But back then, his family situation, his mother,
You should know about it.
but I was stubborn and wanted to try to see where I stood in his heart. Xia Su covered her face with her hand, her expression filled with pain and sorrow. In the end, I paid the price for my selfishness. I made the wrong choice. I love painting and wanted to achieve something with it. But really, I could have done that anywhere. I should have chosen to stay with him,
She murmured at last.
Xia Su fell silent, sinking into the soft leather sofa, looking fragile and helpless. I spun the pen in my hand, unsure whether to offer advice as a doctor or comfort her as an acquaintance. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to say anything. My professional knowledge was useless in this situation. I couldn't tell her about the dark and lonely time Lu Zhan went through after she left. Aside from work, he locked himself in his house, avoiding all social interactions. I borrowed a spare key from Aunt Zhou and forced my way into his home. I cleaned his room, cooked for him, and dragged him out to get some fresh air. I also couldn't calmly reassure her, saying, "Look, even though so much time has passed, Lu Zhan still cares about you." After a long silence, Xia Su seemed to have come to some realization. She stood up, adjusted her clothes, grabbed her purse, and seemed ready to leave. Since I'm back, I should try again. Maybe there's still a chance with him. She looked at me, her eyes regaining some spark. "Shu, what do you think?" Xia Su directly asked for my opinion, and I could only awkwardly nod. "I suppose, maybe." After sending her out of the consultation room, I suggested that if her insomnia was severe, she should seek treatment early. If necessary, I could introduce her to a renowned expert in the field. Lu Zhan said the same to me. "Maybe he can accompany me to see a doctor," she said, flashing me her graceful and composed smile again. "Thank you, Shu-yi." For a long time, Lu Zhan and I had no contact, let alone meet. I intentionally distanced myself, tactfully avoiding any awkwardness. And Lu Zhan, who rarely initiated contact before, was probably busy trying to repair his relationship with Xia Su and would no longer think of me. Looking back at these 3 years, it was always me who took the initiative, initiating greetings, reaching out, going to see him, constantly sharing things I liked and disliked in front of him. I almost confessed to him at one point, but with my initiative gone, the relationship naturally cooled down. Song Yoo-young, on the other hand, often kept in touch with me, meeting every few days. We would eat together, take walks, watch movies, discovering many shared hobbies. It was almost like a habit. I was always the one being cared for. After the doctor-patient relationship faded, it was much more natural and easy to be around him. We talked about a movie I had wanted to see for a long time but couldn't find a good quality version online. Coincidentally, Song Yoo-young had a long-preserved Blu-ray disc of it, so we made plans to watch it together at my place. We went grocery shopping together, cooked meals, and Song Yoo-young, in his gray sweater and cartoon apron, was cooking in the small kitchen. It wasn't awkward at all. A simple meal of 2 dishes and a soup on the table felt surprisingly warm, especially for someone like me, who usually relied on the cafeteria or takeout for meals. During dinner, Song Yoo-young received a phone call. He told me that his relatives back home were always trying to set him up on blind dates. But I turned them down. I told him I have someone I like. Song Yoo-young put down his phone and casually mentioned it, but I couldn't ignore the brief, but intense look he gave me. I pretended to focus on my food, unable to respond to the warmth in his gaze. Luckily, the topic was quickly changed and the atmosphere returned to being light and relaxed. After dinner, we comfortably sat on the sofa. Even though we had watched the movie several times before, Song Yoo-young was still focused on the screen. From the side, his prominent Adam's apple, sharp jawline, and the light reflecting off his glasses made him seem even more attractive. He had a faint scent, like the lingering fragrance of pine wood after burning, giving a sense of warmth on a cold winter night. We simply enjoyed the leisurely moment, without the need to analyze our relationship. I treated it as just having a friend in the city to spend time with. I was content not talking about feelings, and it felt fine that way. The movie ended near midnight. I walked Song Yoo-young downstairs. I only wore a thin coat, and the cold winter wind made me instinctively shrink my neck. Song Yoo-young took off his scarf and wrapped it around my neck. "I'll be up in a minute." "You should wear it for now," he said. Although I said that, I didn't make any move to take it off. The warmth from the scarf was hard to resist. "I'm in my prime, a little cold wind won't hurt, it's good to cool off," he said. Song Yoo-young waved stylishly at me and walked toward the parking lot. His tall figure soon disappeared into the night. I turned to head back upstairs, still thinking about what Song Yoo-young's words meant when suddenly, a figure darted out of the darkness, grabbing my arm. I screamed in surprise, but when I saw it was Lu Zhan, I calmed down. Lu Zhan pulled me toward him and pressed my shoulder. His face was visibly upset. "I was planning to come find you today, but I saw you and Song Yoo-young carrying shopping bags into the building. I waited downstairs, wanting to see when he would leave." Lu Zhan gritted his teeth. "I almost thought he wasn't going to leave tonight. But what does that have to do with you?" I looked at Lu Zhan, confused, as the cold wind blew into my thin jacket, making me shiver. He pointed toward the direction Song Yoo-young had left. "You two, alone together. How could you let him stay so late at your place?" "What do you mean, Lu Zhan?" Perhaps because of my scream earlier, Song Yoo-young came back. He stood in front of me, pushing Lu Zhan's hand away. The two of them were about the same height, and Song Yoo-young looked directly at him. "I asked you before. You said you and Shu Yi are just friends. So, what right do you have to interfere with her? This isn't your business, Lu Zhan. Even if she's dating me, it's none of your concern." Lu Zhan was left speechless. Song Yoo-young stood his ground. "If you have any other thoughts, first ask Shu Yi if she agrees, then go make it clear to your first love. I'll make sure to leave and never bother you again." Lu Zhan's chest rose and fell, unable to find words to refute. He shot Song Yoo-young a glance, then, in a fit of rage, turned and stormed to his car. He slammed the door and sped off. "Sorry about today," I said with a forced smile, but I couldn't quite manage to make it look genuine. Song Yoo-young still had his back to me. He didn't turn around, but let out a sigh, his shoulders sinking. He said, "There's no need for you to apologize." In the days that followed, I ran into Lu Zhan. He was with Xia Su, accompanying her for a medical visit. They were walking toward me, and Xia Su greeted me enthusiastically. She was also tall, but next to Lu Zhan, she appeared delicate and dependent, like a little bird beside him. Lu Zhan had been slightly turned, listening to what Xia Su was saying, but when he saw me, his expression darkened. He seemed like he wanted to say something, but with Xia Su present, he said nothing. Later, Xia Su's social media frequently featured Lu Zhan. Sometimes it was just his hand showing at dinner, sometimes a back view on the street, or a side profile at a desk. The photos never revealed his full face, but anyone familiar could immediately recognize him. Xia Su seemed to be subtly expressing her happiness and sweetness. Strangely, even though I wasn't in a relationship, I felt like I had just experienced a breakup. Song Yuyang couldn't stand seeing me so down and dragged me out to climb a mountain during a break when everyone else was resting. I rummaged through my bag and found the card camera that Lu Zhan had given me. Holding it now, its texture was still the same, but the excitement I once felt was gone. I took many pictures of the scenery along the way, and when we reached a platform halfway up the mountain, Song Yuyang suggested we take a rest. I looked at the photos one by one. The images were clear, but the color saturation wasn't as high as expected, and the results were far below my expectations. I lost interest and began deleting the photos I didn't like. I had been so obsessed with this camera, partly because it was hard to get, but when it finally became mine, I realized it wasn't as special as I had imagined, and it left me feeling disappointed. By the time I deleted the last photo, my finger paused on the delete key. The screen displayed Lu Zhan's face. Whether he was looking at the camera or gazing at me behind the lens, his smile was gentle, his eyes as bright as stars. "What are you looking at so intently?" Song Yuyang pressed a bottle of mineral water against my face, the cold sensation snapping me out of my thoughts. I took the bottle from him, ignoring his mischievous grin, and pressed the power button to turn off the camera, putting it back in my bag. Song Yuyang must have seen the photo, but he didn't say anything. The next part of the mountain trail was steeper than before, and I struggled to climb. I wiped my nose, beads of sweat forming on my skin. Song Yuyang, on the other hand, was calm, as if walking on flat ground. "Look at you, you don't exercise enough. You need to get out more in the future," he said. I couldn't tell if it was a kind suggestion or a sarcastic remark. I gave him a sidelong glance and continued climbing. Song Yuyang quickly took a few steps ahead, then turned to face me, extending his hand toward me. "Let me walk the rest of the way with you." The fiery red sunset illuminated the steady mountains behind us. Song Yuyang's words suddenly sounded unusually serious, serious enough to make me feel like he wasn't just talking about the remaining mountain path. His open palm was broad, and if I placed my hand in his, I could feel its warmth, and the rest of the journey might not seem as tiring. For a moment, I hesitated, but in the end, I quickly slapped my hand against his. "I can walk by myself." Song Yuyang looked at his palm, shook his head, and smiled helplessly. That day was one of the rare sunny winter days. We reached the mountaintop together, and the sunset hadn't yet set below the horizon. The fresh air filled my lungs, and the vast scenery lifted my mood. On the eve of the new year, an incident occurred. After work, I ran into a schizophrenic patient in the lobby. He had been hospitalized for a while and had been discharged after his condition improved. He greeted me with a smile. "Dr. Xu, you're off work?" "Yes, you look in good spirits. Have you been feeling unwell lately?" He appeared so normal that I relaxed my guard and approached him, greeting him like an old friend. But then, his face suddenly changed, his eyes wide with rage. "It's all of you. You're trying to harm me, chasing me, locking me up," he said, and suddenly pulled out a wooden stick, raising it high. It all seemed like slow motion. I watched helplessly as the stick came closer to strike my forehead, unable to react in time. In the blink of an eye, someone pushed me aside with force, and I heard a grunt near my ear. Song Yuyong was leaning against my shoulder in pain. It took a while for him to recover, and he inhaled sharply through his teeth. The patient snapped out of it, holding the stick in place, confused and unsure of what to do. Security quickly arrived and subdued him. Song Yuyong had only been waiting for me to finish work, but due to this incident, he ended up with a shoulder blade fracture and had to rest at home for over a month. Everything was my fault, so without any excuses, I ran over to take care of him whenever I had free time, looking after his daily needs. On New Year's Eve, my mother and her current husband came from out of town to spend the holiday with me. Aunt Zhou invited us to join her for the New Year's Eve dinner. When I was in college, Uncle Lu suddenly proposed a divorce to Aunt Zhou. Even though they had been together for most of their lives, Uncle Lu admitted he had met someone who made his heart flutter and was willing to leave everything behind. Aunt Zhou cried, begged him to stay, but there was no changing his mind. The once gentle, smiling Aunt Zhou seemed like a different person. She became depressed and at one point even attempted suicide, but luckily, Lu Zhan found her in time. That's why, 3 years ago, Lu Zhan couldn't possibly leave with Xia Su, and Zhou needed someone to care for her, and Lu Zhan couldn't just walk away. Over the years, Aunt Zhou visibly lost weight, but thankfully, after careful treatment, her mental state was stable. At the dinner table, the conversation inevitably turned to young people's relationships. Aunt Zhou placed food into my bowl, looked at Lu Zhan, and smiled warmly. I've seen how Shu Yi feels about Zhan since she was little. She gently tucked my hair behind my ear. Since you both don't have partners now, why don't you try dating? I was caught off guard. The food in my mouth almost choked me, and my face immediately turned red. I looked at Lu Zhan, expecting him to explain something, but he just kept his head down, focusing on his meal, completely ignoring us. You see, you've grown so much, and yet you're embarrassed now, Aunt Zhou teased. Zhan didn't understand before, but I've already noticed he and that Xia Su won't last. Before Aunt Zhou could continue, Lu Zhan finally glanced over at us, his face serious. Without saying anything, he handed me 2 tissues. I finally used the tissues to cover my mouth and cough, just in time to interrupt Aunt Zhou. After dinner, I went to the balcony to get some fresh air. Last time I visited Yuyong, he said you've been taking care of him lately. Lu Zhan stood behind me, draping his coat over my shoulders. I struggled to shake it off, but I couldn't, so I let him. Although he got hurt because of you, you don't need to personally take care of him. You could just hire a nurse. I couldn't help but laugh at Lu Zhan's nonchalant tone. But when Xia Su was sick, you didn't leave her side either. Lu Zhan froze for a moment, then smiled slightly. So, Shui, are you jealous? I used to love the way Lu Zhan smiled, charming with a hint of mischief, but now, it just left me speechless. I didn't know how to break through his self-assured attitude. I've been with Xia Su before. Even if there are no feelings left, I can't just abandon her. She wants to get back together, but I realized I don't feel the same way about her anymore. She's holding a painting exhibition here, with no relatives around, and her condition isn't the best. Once this period is over, I'll make things clear with her. I looked at Lu Zhan's serious face, not understanding why he felt the need to explain all this to me. Now, Xia Su was just a responsibility to him, but what if she still made him feel the way she once did? Would that mean Lu Zhan was planning to rekindle things with her? If Lu Zhan and Xia Su hadn't broken up 3 years ago, would they still be together now? If it weren't for that phone call from Xia Su that night, would Lu Zhan have accepted my confession? But life doesn't work on what-ifs. Time passes and things change. No one can go back to how things were. But deep down, I realized that back then, and even now, Lu Zhan had never truly considered me first. Fireworks suddenly exploded in the distance, brilliant but brief. Midnight was approaching, and the year was coming to an end. People eagerly awaited the new chapter of their lives. I stared at the night sky, suddenly coming to a realization. But why are you telling me all this? No matter what happens between you and Xia Su, it doesn't really have anything to do with me. Lu Zhan sighed, still thinking I was just speaking out of frustration. Do you remember why you wanted to study psychiatry? It was because of my mom. Back then, she was depressed, and you said you'd study this field so you could treat her. He reminisced. Every time there was a holiday, you came over to talk to my mom, to comfort her. Her current state, you had a part in it. After graduation, you insisted on staying in Yuqing instead of going back home. Wasn't that for me? Hearing Lu Zhan say all of this made me see the person I used to be. It only made me more melancholic. So you've understood all this, huh? But you never responded to me. Wasn't it good the way things were before? Can a relationship really last? Look at all the examples around us, your parents, my parents, and then me and Xia Su. At that point, Lu Zhan's expression grew somber. The fireworks in the sky exploded again and slowly faded away. The initial wonder had long gone, and it left people indifferent. Are you trying to tell me you've already liked me, but just didn't want to confirm it? I forced a smile. It's probably because of Song Yu-yang, you're feeling threatened. You can't accept that the attention that used to be on you is now on someone else. Shiyi, do you have to keep interpreting my actions this way? Lu Zhan turned to face me, his expression slightly dazed. Why are you looking at me like that? As if you're analyzing your patient. I told Lu Zhan that I had just come to some realizations. I used to think liking someone was just about being passionate. Now I realize that relationships can be about shared interests, mutual comfort, and responsiveness, rather than just one-sided infatuation. Lu Zhan looked incredulous. Are you talking about you and Yu Yang? How is that possible? You've only known him for such a short time. Do you really understand him? The sound of firecrackers echoed through the sky. I didn't answer directly. I simply told him calmly, I've realized that I don't like you the way I used to. I wasn't sure if Lu Zhan understood me. He leaned against the railing on the balcony, unmoving for a long while. I returned his coat to him, then turned away without looking back. Suddenly, I thought of Song Yu-yang. On this night meant for family reunions, he hadn't been able to return home due to his injury. I wasn't sure how he was doing now. I arrived at Song Yu-yang's place, punching in the password to open the door, intending to wish him a happy new year. The difference in temperature between indoors and outdoors made my nose suddenly sting. Song Yu-yang was lying on the couch in the living room, staring blankly at the TV. On the coffee table was an empty instant noodle cup and some snack wrappers, while lively choral music played on the TV, making the room feel strangely desolate. Song Yu-yang hadn't expected me to visit so suddenly. He pointed at the untidy coffee table, looking a bit embarrassed. The maid's on vacation and no delivery service can get through, so I had to make do. Hey, why do you look like you're about to cry? Song Yu-yang panicked. He tried to get up but winced in pain, his back injury flaring up. I pressed him back down on the sofa and sat next to him. My chest felt tight, and I couldn't find the words to say. Do you think I look pitiful right now? I heard the saying, when you feel pity for someone, love is not far behind. Song Yu-yang teased, trying to cheer me up. He watched my reaction, but when I didn't speak, his tone turned serious. I've seen all kinds of patients over the years, and I hardly feel sympathy anymore. But that day when I saw you like that, I suddenly thought you looked so pitiful. To comfort a patient, I'd usually say something like, I'll do my best. But that day, all I wanted to tell you was, I'm here for you. Then I thought about how pitiful you are in love too, even though it's not because of me. Song Yu-yang lowered his eyelids, pretending to be aggrieved. So, do you think I've hopelessly fallen in love with you? I had never seen him like this before. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I want you to feel sorry for me too, but I don't need pity. He pointed at his back. This little injury of mine, you don't need to feel guilty or pressured. If any other beautiful lady were in danger, I'd have a hard time ignoring it. On the TV, the New Year countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2. The New Year was truly coming. Though this second and the next would be no different, the ritual of the countdown held a sense of anticipation for a better future. I looked at Song Yu-young. Will you wait for me for a while? I didn't know if Song Yu-young would understand. I didn't want to lean on him to escape my troubles, nor did I want to start a relationship in such an unclear way. I needed to sort myself out first, before properly accepting someone else. Song Yu-young looked at me, his eyes sparkling. All right, I'm still young, but don't make me wait too long. After the new year, my application to go for further studies was approved, meaning I would need to leave for a year. Before I left, Xia-su invited me to visit her art exhibition. I was drawn to one painting, a single eye with intense colors. Look at the way it's staring at you, so passionate. Xia-su stood in front of me, gazing at the painting, though her eyes seemed to drift elsewhere. I didn't quite understand abstract art, so I didn't linger in front of the painting for long. Xia-su told me that after the exhibition, she would be leaving. The hardest part about relationships is when two people are on different wavelengths. Once you miss each other, it fades, and maybe by then, feelings have already shifted elsewhere. She stared out at the large patch of green through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the sky clear and breezy. During my time away, I was caught up in a whirlwind of activity. Song Yu-young rarely contacted me, seemingly giving me space. Lu Zhan would occasionally check in, sometimes on behalf of Aunt Zhou, other times on his own. The topics were always respectful, as if I were still the same girl next door. It wasn't until one evening, after a gathering, that Lu Zhan suddenly called me. His voice was thick with alcohol. Shiyi, do you think if I had confirmed things with you earlier, you would be here with me now? I didn't want to dwell on this unresolvable question. Just forget it. Even if we were together, Xia-su would still come back. I can't have a boyfriend who's still caring for his ex. I can't tolerate even the slightest hesitation or doubt. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, then Lu Zhan laughed heartily. You really are something, Shiyi. We both fell silent for a while, and just as I thought he had fallen asleep and was about to hang up, Lu Zhan mumbled, just a little more, looks like I really missed my chance. Occasionally, I'd think back to the past, those easy, joyful moments, most of which involved Song Yu-young. As my time for further studies neared its end, I couldn't wait to return. When I arrived in Yucheng by high-speed train, I looked around but saw no familiar faces except for Lu Zhan. Lu Zhan stood in front of me, arms crossed, smirking. Disappointed to see me? I couldn't find an answer. Yu-young had an emergency patient, so he couldn't get away. He asked me to come instead. Lu Zhan took the luggage from my hands with a resigned look. Come on, I'll take you to see him. University classmates reunion. After a hearty meal and drinks, someone suggested we take a group photo, and the class leader pulled out his phone. Hey, I've got a camera here. It'll be way better quality, with a camera. Song Yu-young held up a black compact camera. Lu Zhan's brow twitched. Wasn't that the same camera he'd given Shui before? The group photo was taken, and then everyone crowded around Song Yu-young to flip through the photos. One person accidentally flipped too far. Whoa, who took such a handsome photo of you? You look totally vain. Is that a group photo? Who's the beautiful lady there? The old classmates started to tease him. Song Yu-young raised an eyebrow and began proudly introducing his girlfriend, casually bragging about the legendary way they met. Recently, he'd noticed Shui always fiddling with that camera. There was one photo he recognized. He pretended not to care, but the more he pretended, the more restless he felt. Finally, he found an excuse to ask Shui to borrow the camera for the reunion photo. You can use the camera, but not a single photo can be deleted. Shui warned him. What photos could be so precious they couldn't be deleted? Song Yu-young eagerly took the camera and flipped through it right then and there. The more he looked, the more pleased he became, his smile growing wider. The photos were all of him, some with an apron in the kitchen, cooking, some at his desk, hunched over studying, and even some after a shower, loosely tying his bathrobe to reveal his toned chest. There were also a few selfies of Shui, taken while he was asleep, with her face in the shot beside his peaceful sleeping face. All that time she seemed to casually play with the camera, she was actually capturing his everyday life. She gave an honest assessment. The camera's not great for scenery, but it's pretty good for portraits. Who knew his girlfriend had some talent as a photographer? He really liked it. At that moment, Lujan stood at the edge of the crowd, feeling miserable. He had paid a hefty price for this camera from a scalper back then, and now it was being used to take pictures of another man. Typical Shui. Even though he and Song Yu-yang were still close friends, Song Yu-yang couldn't help but show off now and then, constantly flaunting his relationship, leaving no room for a break. Even the strongest heart couldn't withstand that. Thinking back to when Song Yu-yang had asked him to be the best man at his wedding, Lujan couldn't help but feel a sense of loneliness. He'd finally made up his mind to listen to Mrs. Zhou's advice and start his own blind dates. He just hoped he could find someone before he choked on too much dog food. After getting married, Song Yu-yang felt the weight of his responsibilities and became even more diligent, even pursuing a PhD while working. One day, he stood in for his mentor to teach a class of medical students. During the Q&A session, a shy female student raised her hand and boldly asked, "Professor Song, you're so handsome. I wonder if you have a girlfriend?" Song Yu-yang smiled faintly, slowly raising his left hand, the silver wedding band on his ring finger shining brightly. On rare days when he didn't have to be in surgery, Song Yu-yang took the chance to show off his wedding ring. A wave of whispers spread through the classroom as the students began gossiping about how Professor Song and his wife had met. "So, you all need to study hard and master your skills." Song Yu-yang cleared his throat and began recounting that legendary story, one he'd told countless times before. "I can say that on the first day I met your professor's wife, I performed an appendectomy on her." The room erupted in surprise. One of the girls teased, "Does that mean you have to wear makeup when going to the hospital? You never know, you might meet a handsome doctor like Professor Song." Song Yu-yang's survival instinct kicked in. Your professor's wife is the most beautiful, even when she's barefaced. Pleased with his perfect response, he glanced over at the back of the lecture hall, where his eyes softened. There, in the last row near the window, his barefaced and most beautiful wife was peacefully asleep, her oversized jacket covering her slightly rounded belly. It was Shui, who insisted on sitting in on the class. Song Yu-yang had been busy lately, and Shui had complained about not spending enough time together. She came to sit in on the class to let their baby get familiar with his father's voice and, at the same time, be gently introduced to knowledge. It was a win-win. Perhaps because of the habits she developed in school, she couldn't stay awake in surgical medicine, especially with her pregnancy, making her more tired than usual. Before she knew it, she'd fallen asleep. A slant of golden sunlight gently touched her face, and in that moment, time seemed to stand still.